Hey there. If you've clicked, first things first, I want to thank you so much for your time and I hope you get a little something out of this. I'm going to be upfront and just admit this is not going to be a fancy video at all, mainly because I identify as analog American and also because I'm running a little bit off the cuff a little bit. I old school style took some notes about what I want to talk about, but this is really just going to kind of be me getting off my chest something that I've been seeing going on around the interwebs. And it has to do with President Trump, which is probably why you've clicked, but really the sentiment surrounding him. And I'm not here to talk about what I like or don't like about President Trump. I'm going to be upfront. I voted for him proudly in both 2020 and 2024. And the little things here or there that I disagree with happening are vastly outweighed by the things that I am incredibly happy about that are going on and that he's getting done right now. And that's considering how much he is working uphill against. So I'm not here to either praise or bury the man. I'm here to talk about this blackpilling that I've seen because people feel like things aren't happening exactly as they would like them to be. And it's not just that it's like hanging out on these little dark corner of ye old interwebs. Like it's actually starting to spread out across platforms where people are feeling like there's really no point in participating. There's really no point in even doing their part, that nothing is happening the way they want or as fast as they want. And we've been sold out and everything's a failure. Let's not even bother. So it's the black pill and the doomerism that I want to address because number one, just on a personal level, I feel like I cannot stand blackpilling. I cannot stand dooming. I cannot stand that cynical mindset because it is so counterproductive to getting things done. There's a fine line between being pragmatic and realistic and understanding what you are working against. And occasionally you're going to get a little depressed when you're having to work really hard at something that seems like it's throwing everything it can back at you. But the attitude of blackpilling is one of the worst we can have because, again, it's counterproductive to all of the progress that we're trying to make. And on top of that, on the less personal and actually more important level, it's ungodly. It is. You may argue against it, but no, the truth is that morose, that depression, that attitude of don't even bother is saying that you don't trust God. You don't trust that God has a plan. And more importantly, you don't trust that God's plan has a role for you in it. It's saying you don't want to do it. It's in a way a bit like Jonah, but at least God was able to use Jonah's situation. However, I don't want us to be like that and running away from what we can work on when we've got these opportunities right now to turn things back around. So I'm not going to just sit and condemn you guys because I don't want you to be like this, but I'm not angry for you being like this because I understand it. I want to kind of address where I think it's coming from because I've actually thought about this for a while. I've been watching the sentiment grow for about 6 months at least now. And I want to like where I think it's starting to come from, why obviously it's happening, and then if possible, offer you a solution that's more rooted in hope. And with that solution, you don't have to have your Bible with you, but I am going to ask you just some recommended reading out of the Bible that I hope would give you a new perspective and be able to refresh your soul and kind of give you a different perspective from the word itself and scripture to regalvanize you. So, just starting from where I think it comes from, the biggest one, and whether or not you realize that you're doing this or want to acknowledge it, is that people have been putting President Trump on a pedestal. And I understand why, because the fact that he was able to actually properly get his landslide victory in 2024 after the fortified election in 2020. Those were fortified, by the way, was Newsweek's words, not mine. So don't blast me off YouTube. Anyways, the fact that he was able to not only get that landslide decisive victory, but also the fact that immediately after his inauguration, he jumped straight back into the Oval Office and started just hammering out executive order after executive order and just getting as much done that day as possible to start turning things back around, only to get stymied by lawfare and swamp politics. But that energy that was surrounding, like, from election day all the way to the inauguration day and a little bit after with the appointment of his administration and whatnot was just euphoric. It was electric. It was just that shot in the arm that we needed, that, hey, we have a chance to rework and retake back this country and parting the Red Seas. I'm going to get biblical and say, yes, it felt like that chance, like us being given that chance with God's instrument. That said, us putting him on a pedestal meant that eventually he was going to fall in our eyes, because no one should be put on a pedestal. Not your loved ones, not your friends, not your family, not celebrities, not your favorite like author or athlete or actor. None of that, especially not politicians or businessmen. They are all people like you and I are just people. We are imperfect. And at the end of the day, the only perfect person who has ever walked this planet is Christ our Savior. Everyone else is someone who needs him. And that goes especially so for President Trump, who is just a person. He's being used right now, truly, I believe, as God's instrument in this time to lead us. But you know who else is God's instruments? All of us as well. So the pedestal thing where everyone's just expecting him to be completely perfect and to do things, exactly as they're thinking it's going to happen without being privy to everything going on in the background or what's going on up in that swamp that he's been fighting against. And this also goes for people in his administration too, because I saw a lot of idolizing of his cabinet picks and the people who are working with them. And while I myself personally, I have people in his administration I really like and people I side eye and distrust, I think what they're given with and what we've got to work with, you know what? Let's work with what we got. Okay. So admire, absolutely. Revere, idolize, no, 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 no. Nobody should ever be idolized. And I think that was the first trap that people fell into, was wanting to idolize President Trump and then realizing his feet are made of clay. Now, that kind of leads into where the next spot where I think the black pills were coming from. And this one is a big one. Whether or not you want to admit it, or whether or not you know that you cannot believe the MSM, mainstream media, or as I like to call them, the malicious satanic media, the fact that even if you don't believe them and know not to, they're still coloring your worldview. They are so pervasive and insidious that the narratives they're trying to set up, even if we're defeating them in real time and blasting them out in real time, their negative attitude and that static that they're using to like deceive and divide us, it's coloring that worldview. And for whatever, speaking of imperfect people, whatever it is you think of Elon Musk, we do all owe him a debt of gratitude for purchasing Twitter, simply because he was able to dismantle most of the censorship mechanisms that operated on that platform. So that made a huge difference in that whenever an incident happens, we're actually able to get out in real time what actually happened so that we can bust through the narrative that the mainstream media, malicious satanic media, is trying to put out and brainwash people with. Now, again, like I said, thanks to Twitter being purchased by Musk, independent media has been able to explode and actually thrive and flourish. The problem is, again, as I mentioned, the malicious satanic media, which is, I'm not using the word satanic lightly, they are meant to lie. They are the propaganda arm for the Uniparty in the swamp, and very specifically one side of that, and their job is not to deliver the truth. And I'm not letting anybody off the hook here, because if they're a mainstream network, if they're a major network, a major publication, they're all working for the same people. Their job is to deceive. Their job is deception, okay? Their job is to static, to demoralize, and to divide us. It does not matter what side they're on, okay? Now, that said, there are still so many people who choose to believe in spite of the overwhelming evidence that we can give to that demonstrably disproves the false narratives that the media is putting out. And between the mainstream media working to divide us and the fact that there are people who believe and are being led by the mainstream media, I can see where the black pills are coming from in that respect, because I personally really do want to see accountability for the media, the malicious satanic media, and the lies that they have been telling I mean, for a very long time, but it's just been growing and growing, and we're disproving and disproving. Okay. Now, that said, I'm not letting independent media off the hook, and I'm especially not letting the influencers, so to speak, off the hook. Because at the end of the day, that is still a media that you are consuming. That is still information you are consuming. And I've found it very interesting over the past few months that a few of those independent media sources have also started to deliver on the black pills and deliver that demoralized mindset and spread it to their viewers. Some of them, it comes from a genuine place, and I don't agree with it. So I personally have had to weed a few of my old media sources out of my life because I don't like that attitude. Some of them, I wonder, and I'm not even going to name names. I'm just going to say some independent media sources. Some of them I wonder if they're not compromised, if they're not being given money to spread this demoralized attitude, because that actually is a communist tactic to buy off the media. I mean, we've acknowledged that the major media sources are all propaganda arms. Who's to say they wouldn't be compromising independent media as well? So the big solution there actually is, as we're being told to test the spirits, which applies, of course, obviously in church and things you are being given, spiritually, we should also be applying that same discernment to where we get our information and where we get our media. Because even if they are independent, it doesn't actually mean they're genuinely independent. Okay. We are meant to be testing what we're consuming to make sure that it is wholesome spiritually and mentally. It may be informing us, yes, but are they informing us for actual genuine purposes or in order to add to the demoralization that these propaganda arms and these propaganda outlets are also trying to give to us? That, like I said, I think between, that and the pedestalism that was going on, a bit of the idolatry was leading it there. Now, speaking of, kind of moving along with the media, and something that obviously, as they're reporting on things, and this includes independent media as well. The other big attitude that I've been seeing as far as the black pilling is people arguing that things aren't moving, things aren't happening, things aren't moving as fast as they want. Why don't we have the Epstein files, which actually were this? I'm making this on February 3rd of 2026. They were actually released just a few days previous at the start of the weekend. But people complaining that the Epstein files weren't released fast enough, people complaining that there haven't been arrests, people complaining that there hasn't been accountability yet. And I just want to stop right there and point something out. Number one, part of that attitude comes from our instant gratification culture. The wheels of justice, unfortunately, do move slow. And the wheels of justice, when we've had to deal with decades of corrupt judges and are still working with, judges who really shouldn't be in robes and are working against us like this, it's going to move even slower. So the fact that we're able to get done what we have gotten done so far is actually pretty good. That said, yes, I would like to be seeing some information as well. To be fair, I think a lot of people who were calling for the Epstein files to be released and have been reading the Epstein files are kind of thinking that maybe they should have been careful what they wished for. Like, sure, we're seeing names, but we're also seeing what they did. And I do want to say sometimes you don't always want the answers or the details. What's important is at the very least, we need to be praying for the victims that were in those Epstein files, because that was a big thing to me was if they were released, I personally wanted to know that the victims were properly protected. So people are starting to see and wonder, but for all of you who wanted the Epstein files, I want to point something out. I have been waiting maybe more impatiently than I should to find out if it was actually true that whoever was the head of the DNC, the chairwoman of the DNC, visited Seth Rich's hospital room the night he was murdered, like rumored. I want to know who gave Fox News the call to call Arizona for Biden when only 60% of the votes have been counted. I want to know who gave all of the major news networks the call to just suddenly stop counting when President Trump had demonstrable leads in all the swing states on that fateful night in 2020. Since we're talking about people giving calls and whatnot. I want to know who gave the call to call Florida for Gore while the polls were still open in my Florida Panhandle hometown. It's a really good way to red pill a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 15-year-old is to conveniently forget that Florida has two time zones and then call it for the wrong president. Anyways, but my point is, yes, we do want accountability, and we should be praying for accountability, and we truly should be praying for justice because that is God's purview. Now, it needs to be done right. And as much as I want arrests to start rolling out and things to happen and people to see justice for their crimes, I also know that it needs to be done by the book so that there cannot be any blowback. I completely understand the sentiment of things aren't moving fast enough, things aren't, but you're focusing, number one, on the things that have not happened instead of looking at the things that have happened. And the second part actually leads into my big point, where are things like the Epstein files and those things that you're blackpilling over because they're not moving fast enough, are they being used to laser point distract you? Are they being used as a distraction? And are you so focused on them that you have completely missed what has been going on at the local level? Because that is my big concern about the blackpilling, is that everyone is so focused on what is going on a national level and on a federal level that what is happening under their nose in their own communities has gone completely unnoticed. And I want to let you know something right now. You know who doesn't go unnoticed in small towns, who doesn't think small towns are too small for them to notice? Very evil people like George Soros or Neverroy Singham, or people who are actively, openly funding the destruction of this nation. There is no pie in this country too small that they can't sink their evil little fingers into to try to defund and destroy us from the very tiniest levels. And that is how so many of us have poked our heads up and realized that there are corrupt DAs now, there are corrupt prosecutors, there are corrupt judges sitting in office, there are corrupt school boards, which means that they are putting in things that groom our children and then arresting parents who stand up for themselves. There are people who are there are judges and whatnot who are letting criminals walk the street free. There are politicians who are completely under foreign interest and not actually working for us, even though they're supposed to be. And that's the big thing, guys. We're so busy blackpilling that we've missed everything on the local level when the evil people are completely taking over our local level. President Trump, I firmly believe, with everything that he has been up against, is actually doing a really good job. And the important thing is he and his administration are dismantling at the utmost level rather, those mechanisms that the globalists have had in place to try and enslave us and just keep us completely down. However, this does not work without one very important element, and that one very important element is the first three words of the U.S. Constitution, which is the founding document of our nation. It is not the president will. It is not here's what the president does. The first three words, it's from the preamble, and I'm going to read it to you. We the people. It's we the people. That's you and I. That's your family. That's your loved ones. It's everyone of voting age. That's everyone who's able to just learn about and participate in the civic process. We the people. Not the politicians, not the president, we the people. This is a representative republic. We vote, in theory, democratically for the people who will represent us on the upper echelons in the government. And the reason we do that is to check power and maintain balance instead of democracy itself, full blown, which is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. Okay, now let me go ahead and read the rest of the first sentence of the preamble so you kind of get the point here. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Guys, at the end of the day, you're waiting on Trump and you're waiting on his administration, and you're waiting on politicians to fix what we the people should be paying attention to and should have been paying attention to all along. And I'm gonna call myself out on this too, because I, like most people, just wanted to go to work, be able to make somewhat of a living, and then at the end of the day be able to come home and just enjoy my life. And unfortunately, that has led to all of this happening and all of us forgetting that we have a civic responsibility in this nation to not only make sure our local is taken care of, so that starts household, your families, your church, your schools, your school boards, your city councils, your county councils, your region, your state, and then the national level. So that's all your representatives, both in your state and who is representing you in the federal government up through. And actually, something really cool, I don't realize, I think a lot of people don't know this, which really bothers me, but judges are usually up for reelection every 4 years or so. So if a president elects a judge or puts a judge in a spot that turns out to be deeply corrupted, we, the people, have the ability to vote that judge out. And when that judgeship or that position is vacant, a new judge is oh gosh, well, I can't even think of the word right now. A new judge is placed in by the sitting president. That's actually a big way that President Trump was able to get a lot done in terms of laws and getting orders in his first term was he was appointing judges like crazy to replace all of those open vacant positions around the country and kind of counteract what the Soros-funded Obama and Otto Penn appointed lawfare judges were trying to stymie. Okay, so please remember that because it is our civic responsibility to help this nation out. And right now, the battle is really us, the Patriots, America First versus Uniparty. However, I'm going to say this, and I know this is going to be pragmatic, and I'm going to say this without blackpilling. I'm just going to say this is the reality as it stands. One aspect of that Uniparty absolutely hates us. They hate this nation. They hate the freedoms that we are founded on. They hate the God-given rights that we have. They hate God. Actually, this is a spiritual battle. They have chosen darkness openly and without shame. The rhinos that we have in right now, and I am full-scale conservative. I have no time of day for those rhinos, except for the fact that if they are representing we the people, then it's we the people's job to remind us that they do actually work for us, and our pitchforks are nice and sharp if they decide that they really want to work for foreign interests over us. It is our job just to take maybe 15, 20 minutes out of our day to give them a call and be like, what are you doing to screw this country over? And how can I convince you not to? We need to, because those rhinos, their job is to roll over and let the Democrats run willy-nilly over this nation, right? Piss them off by holding them accountable and making them do their job. And I'm going to say something a little more red pill because people are so set on the fact that, oh, we have to get MAGA candidates. And I agree. I want politicians who actually love this country and put this country first. However, the Israelites wandered the desert for 40 years because there were old Egyptian mindsets that still had to die before God knew that they were ready for the promised land. Everyone 20 and under was going to be allowed into Canaan. Everyone 20 and above was going to die in the desert because go back and read Numbers chapters 13 and 14. It is so relevant to what is going on right now. But anyways, go back and read it. And you find out that the Israelites wanted to go back to Egypt. And that is why God said, you're going to wander. You're not going back to Egypt. You're not going back to Egypt, but you're going to wander in this desert. And it was Joshua and Caleb's job to ensure that those 20 and under, those generations, they were spiritually, physically, emotionally, and mentally prepared to be able to handle taking over the promised land. They had to have God first, not old Egyptian mindsets. That is why they wandered. And I say this because I know we did not get here overnight. We're not going to fix this overnight. But we are probably, in order to at least hold on to this nation right now, because we are a razor's edge, if we can't get all of the America First candidates in on this go around with the primaries, we are going to have to keep in the rhinos that we have and probably elect a few more in order to maintain a majority. Because if we let Democrats take control of this again, if we let them fraud the way they mean to and want to, because they don't win without cheating, let's be honest here, we can kiss this country goodbye. And if you want to know what they have a plan for us, go look at California. Go look at what that nasty little CIA awful Abigail Spanberger is trying to turn Virginia into right now. Virginia, 90% of that did not vote for her. Fairfax County put her in. So the rest of Virginia is being subjected upon by this nasty little communist who's trying to turn it into a lawless state under the guise of progress. That is what they want for the entire nation. And we need to not give up. We need to not sit out. We need to be galvanized. We need to be galvanizing the younger generations and preparing them spiritually and mentally and physically. And if it is at the point where you are extremely depressed because of all of these elements that I pulled in, this is really if there's nothing else you take away, I want you to do this. In the Bible, 1 Kings chapter 19 is the story of Elijah the prophet. And in the previous chapter, he has challenged the prophets of Baal. The Baal is the evil god that the evil queen Jezebel worships. And just as an aside, the Jezebel spirit is real, y'all. Anyways, so Elijah challenges them to prove whose God is superior, and naturally our creator won, and in proving that he was superior, wiped out all of the prophets of Baal. Queen Jezebel was so angry that she put a hit out on Elijah. Elijah was hiding in the desert, and he was so hopeless that he felt there was nothing else he could do, so he asked God to take his life. God sent an angel to bring Elijah food and water and let him rest. In other words, he let him hang out in the cave and just hide and just refresh himself. And when Elijah came out and asked God where he was, there was the wind and the fire and then the still small voice that told Elijah where he needed him, because God still had plans for Elijah. God still has plans for you. We're not dead. We're not done. And I truly believe, I know so many people say we're in end times and IC, but I also feel actually we're Exodus. We have had our Red Sea moment, but we're at that point where we can choose if we're going to go into the promised land, and we're going to have to deal with some people with some old Egyptian mindsets and slowly change things for the better, or if we're going to tip off that razor and go back to Egypt and back into slavery. But please, 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 they need that black pill and they need that doomer mindset to completely demoralize us to the point that we don't fight. And that cannot happen. That cannot happen. There is too much beauty on this earth and in this nation for us to sit and just let that happen. Okay. So I pray that if you have made this far all the way to the end, thank you. Thank you so much. And I truly hope you got something out of this. I hope that you at least got a little message of hope. I hope you got some food for thought. And if anything, I just know that I truly appreciate that you took the time to listen to me do all of this. Okay. I truly passionately believe in this nation. I know what our role is, and I just want to encourage you. I truly do. I want to encourage you because we are not done. We have so much work to do. So if you have to, just get some rest, get some refreshment, fast from the media, take a step back and take stock of what you can control, and then just come back out ready to fight. Okay. We can fix this. So I hope you have hope now. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. Okay. God bless.